In this video, Suzanne Kokinda from Promethean Updates examines the high-stakes moves President Trump is making right now. We will also see how principled resolve separates true leaders from those who fold under pressure. Let's get into the details.
The binary choices of left versus right, war versus anti-war are being shattered as Donald Trump reasserts real American policies and liberates us from the strategic and economic straitjacket imposed since the end of World War II. Chatham House, the British foreign policy flagship think tank, published a piece with a headline that could have come from this channel. Britain's handling of the Iran war shows the limits of UK power. Chatham House also announced that the House of Lords International Relations and Defense Committee will come to Chatham House, where they will discuss the question of what they now call the not-so-special relationship and whether it can survive Trump 2.0. The empire is writing its own autopsy, and the conservative treehouse gave it the headline it deserved. British Defense Minister outlines how the UK Navy will defend the West as soon as they locate their ships. With those tools of the great game sidelined, watch what is actually happening. Right now in Islamabad, the foreign ministers of Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and Egypt are sitting together for the purpose of opening up a dialogue between the United States and Iran, not managing the conflict, ending it. Britain is not in that room, neither is the EU or NATO. And when Pakistan's foreign minister announced that Iran had agreed to allow 20 more Pakistani flagged ships through the Strait of Hormuz, he addressed his statement on X directly to J.D. Vance, Marco Rubio, and Steve Witkoff. Not London, not Brussels, to the Americans. And President Trump himself reposted it within hours. So you have a sovereign Islamic quartet with no colonial history in Iran, no Sykes-Picot baggage, and no 75 years of imperial management to answer for, trying to broker a sovereign resolution. That's a genuinely new thing, and it's happening because the old managers are no longer in the room. Politico interview, presidential trade advisor Navarro made clear that this administration is carrying out a revolution.
Our trade policy is fundamentally revamping the entire world order in the language of the other side. Donald Trump, going back in history, channeling Alexander Hamilton, channeling McKinley, channeling Henry Clay, is basically adopting an America First policy where the protection against unfair trade makes us stronger.
He was asked about Mark Carney, former governor of the Bank of England and now Canadian Prime Minister, who is currently organizing a WTO coalition to try and check Americans' trade policy. Navarro was direct. He said, "It's typical Carney behavior. We've got a problem in Great Britain and Canada with liberal Trump haters." Now, let's look at Carney's former employer, the Bank of England, which was suddenly in the news this week in a story that was overshadowed by Iran coverage and the government shutdown. U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent went to war with the Financial Times, the mouthpiece of the City of London, on the issue of the Bank of England. The FT published a story claiming Bessent had praised the Bank of England as a model for restructuring the Federal Reserve. And before they published it, Bessent had given them an on-the-record denial, and they ran it anyway on anonymous sources. So Bessent shot back with vehemence. By publishing this explicitly false story, the FT has officially become tabloid trash for market participants. In short, FT has literally manufactured an entirely fake policy position for me and the administration. And here's the punchline. He went on to say, "There is much to be said about the storied Bank of England, but any recreation of its operating framework on this side of the Atlantic has never been contemplated. The shameful journalists and editors at the FT are shocking in their meretriciousness, lack of standards, and general intellectual libertinism. It is the worst tradition of Fleet Street to manufacture news rather than report it." So what's really going on here? The Bank of England model is the City of London's preferred architecture for central banking. Bessent is rejecting that. He wants to narrow the Fed's mandate and return to financial instruments and credit instruments that will serve productive economic activity. When the FT tried to claim his reform agenda for their framework, he smacked it down with force. The American system revival that Navarro is pursuing in trade, that Bessent is pursuing in monetary policy, that Vance is expressing in foreign policy, it's all one thing. So whether it's the FT or Carney's rules-based order or the Chatham House autopsy, it's the same old imperial order responding to Trump's new American agenda.
As President Trump is pushing toward restructuring the whole broken global economic system that seems to have been out of control for decades, the leaders in the West are losing themselves. They are throwing out all their toys and turning against President Trump. In this current dangerous political climate, President Trump is demonstrating the decisive leadership only the great American presidents from the past have shown. He's standing firm on the principles of America first, fighting for the strategic and economic security that will make America and the rest of the world safer. Sadly, it seems that some world leaders and the unelected bureaucrats do not want that. Iran is a country that has been supporting evil around the world for decades. Yet at the time when Trump stepped up to take out the regime, the countries that the US has been protecting for decades turned their backs on the US and decided not to help. Unlike other leaders, Trump does not want endless wars. He wants leaders who are willing to work with him and trade with America so that their countries can prosper. He does not want the continuous conflicts that some of our leaders seem to benefit from financially. He wants real economics where countries build and trade, where real assets can be used to develop nations. He wants to build relationships and wealth. Until you have uncompromised leaders who are willing to stand up for their nations with action rather than just mere rhetoric, we will continue to have serious problems. Until we have nations willing to use their resources, especially energy production, to make their economy stronger, their nations and people will continue to slide in poverty, while those same leaders' wealth grows. That is a cycle of true inequality, a system that is not good for any nation that believes in economic freedom. This is what principled resolve looks like. Real leaders make the tough choices and hold the line on what matters, even when the pressure is at its highest. If we want stronger nations and real security, we must choose and support leaders who show this same principled resolve in their own countries. Do you believe that President Trump is making the right moves now? Leave your thoughts in the comments. If you have benefited in any way from this video, please subscribe, like, share, and be sure to leave us a comment.